Good afternoon and welcome to America's Home Cooking. I've been quite busy, that's why you have not been hearing from me, except when I'm cooking. Today I went shopping, and when I went into the store, I decided to look through the yogurt department. That's typical of me checking things out. And they say live cultures in theirs. Now, I know I make my yogurt. I started my cultures from scratch. And I'm still using the same cultures. I just keep feeding them and making more. And it gets stronger because yogurt has a very strong taste to it. But if you buy a plain yogurt or even a health food yogurt and you say, well, I'm going to make yogurt from this, you might get it one time and then it dies and you can't continue using it. And my thing is when I think about it, they might not really be putting live cultures in there, because if there's live cultures in it, your yogurt should have a slight sour taste to it, and it wouldn't die. So they have whatever they call live cultures. It's evident that they are set to die and that you cannot do it, so you have to keep on going back and using theirs. Now, when you sit there and you use yogurt that you make from scratch, and it's basically just using, let's say you could use lemons, use hot peppers, or what's the other one? Coriander seeds. I use coriander seeds with warm milk, and you let it sit, and you cover it slightly half up, but you leave a half of the container or bowl that you're using until it becomes into like a gel or a custard, if you wish to say. Then you can start making yogurt from it. But theirs don't survive. They die. So I am questioning they really do have live cultures in it. I don't think they do. I think they might be using imitations or just using one or two cultures, because when you make your own, you'll notice a lot of difference in your health. You can't miss it. But anyway, just bringing some information to you, though. They sit there and say that there is live cultures and the yogurts you buy at the store. They are not. It's just like they say jasmine rice, the only ingredient in it is rice, which is a lie. They're putting chemicals in it to get that flavor that you like. Balsamic rice, they say it's only rice is the ingredient, and it's not. They put chemicals in it to get that flavor that you're looking for. It's not real. So you begin to think of some of the things that you eat aren't really what they say they are. It's not real. It's synthetically done, or a chemical compound that they put together to give you the flavor that you think of what you're eating, and you're really not, which isn't helping us. And when you think about it, Alzheimer's and other diseases were non-existing, and now within my lifetime there's a lot of new ones coming out, and cancer's on the rise. And this doesn't make any sense. Now, the reason I'm talking about all this is because you should know what's going on with the food. They put preservatives in. I did a whole thing on this a while back, and I told you what preservatives do and the side effects. I don't know what else they're putting into the food. They're putting artificial colorings in. People are getting upset. They said red causes cancer. We didn't use those before. Sodas has corn syrup now. Listen, if you watch old films like American Bandstand and stuff, we were not blimps. Let's put it out there. We were not heavy. We were all thin. I mean, something's going on in my lifetime. I remember everybody being skinny. If we saw somebody heavy, we would be shocked. And the reason I can say this is because when our sons were young, they were like sticks. I mean, they each could eat a half a chicken at a meal, not counting the fruits and vegetables and desserts and everything else. And they were like this, and they ate all day long. I couldn't keep food in the house. I just kept on buying, and I was cooking all the time. And what got me was we went to the pediatrician, and we were called in and reported that our children weren't eating. We were starving them. That was a shock. And the pediatrician said, you know, all of my doctors are accustomed to seeing blimps now. I use the word blimps, it's just overweight. I don't want to say overweight, so I just say a blimp. But the thing is that when they came to the house and saw all the food and saw the kids, our sons eating, they were shocked. He said, "You're not starving these children. These children are healthy." They weren't having sodas, and they weren't eating candy. They were eating fruit. They had homemade bread. They were eating proteins. They were eating pâtés that I had made. They ate a lot of food. There was food. I'm one person that likes food in the house. You know, I don't want to starve. I want to make sure there's a lot of food in the house. So if you get hungry, you can eat. And it came back, and the doctor had to tell us that all the children he sees are overweight. And I'm saying, as teenagers, we were all skinny. We didn't diet. We ate. We ate a lot of food. My mother was always in the kitchen. My friend's mother was always in the kitchen cooking, trying to get the food out to feed us. We were always hungry, and we were eating because we were growing. This is why I wouldn't recommend putting a young person on homemade Mounjaro, because they're growing at that point. They need all of that, food to finish growing up. We didn't have sickness the way we do now. We didn't have a lot of things. And the only thing that has changed is that companies are putting chemicals in our food. Another thing that most people won't believe me, when I was little and growing up as a young girl, we'd look down and we were lucky if we had golf balls for breast. I mean, we just didn't have them. But they did an experiment giving cattle hormones because they wanted them to produce more milk, and get bigger and all. So they sent the meat from these cattle, they sent it to Puerto Rico. Please don't get upset. This is a real record. They went there and they noticed the young girls started having menstrual cycles early, and their breasts were much larger. And they were really getting heavy chested. And the next thing you know is they were getting bigger. And they took, I don't know what happened, but then they decided to do it with our meat, and now we're having this problem of overweight. It's what the companies have done to our food. It wasn't this way. Don't think it ever was, because we were very active. No real problems with us. When we got, when you get older, you might put a little bit of weight on or something. And, when you hit 60 or so, I'm sure grandmothers were a little big, but they weren't blimps. But young girls are heavy today, and they haven't even had children. They're going to school and they're heavy, and doctors think that this is healthy. It is not. The more you're overweight, the more medical issues you're going to have. Now, I'm not telling you to go and starve yourself to death or anything else. I'm just bringing that I am 72 years old. I have got a history, and I can see the difference of how children and young people were. And if you take a look at the old American Bandstand, or things that happened where you just saw people, even if you see Woodstock, you didn't see heavy people there. These were young people, and we were all skinny at that time. So something from my timeline of life to now, and it's getting worse, and doctors are accustomed to it, and they pass medicine out like no tomorrow. We didn't even get sick that much. If we got a cold, big deal, but not everybody got sick. Now, I'm going to talk about something that happened not too long ago in my life, when my husband was getting very sick, and I was stressed out trying to help him get better. Of course, I didn't know the side effects of medication, because my husband would not let me read the PDR that the doctor gave him. My husband was in the medical profession, so he could get the PDR. I noticed that my hands, you see older women where their knuckles are swollen and twisted and not real straight. They look like old people's hands. Mine started going like that. I was really upset. I said, oh my God, what has happened to my hands? And they started hurting when I started working with them, and I was very, very concerned. And this was right, I was coming to the apex, if you wish to say, of my husband's death, and it was tearing me up. And I was eating healthy as I could. And what happened is after he passed, and I got over the depression of everything that had happened, I looked at my hands and they were still just getting old and knobbly, and I was getting dark brown spots on my hand, and I knew that was liver. I knew that was arthritis. I mean, I had nails, they were just cracking and splitting, and I said, oh, I know what this is, and I know what this is. These are signs that are definitely telling me something was going wrong with me. So I sat there and said, that's it. I found out I had an allergy against caffeine. And my doctor said, well, go ahead and have coffee. I'll just give you medicine. And I said, no, I don't want the blood pressure. He gave me blood pressure medicine for a little bit, and I swelled up like a balloon. I went, because I don't take medication. And I just noticed all these things were happening. And this was all under the stress of my husband coming to the point of his death. And so after he passed, I got back into the routine, and I said, I'm not taking this medicine. Look, if I have a problem with caffeine, fine. Throw the coffee out, throw the tea out, throw the sodas out. I don't need them. This was my philosophy. And I started eating and I started calming down. And I slowly noticed, and I threw the medication away. I said, if I'm going to die of a heart attack, I'm just going to die of a heart attack. I don't care. That was my big philosophy in life. I don't care. I'm not going to be poisoned to death. I took the aspirins, the Tylenol, and everything in the medicine cabinet. My husband kept those things in the house. The only thing I keep for myself is Band-Aids. I need a lot of Band-Aids because I cook and I cut myself. I threw it all out. I didn't care what my doctor said. I didn't care anything at that point. I was just going to live my life. And I kept on, as the stress left, and I kept eating the way that you see me eating today. And I'm even better at it than I was then. I noticed that the brown spots started leaving my hand. And then I noticed my nails quit splitting. I have to hit them pretty hard now to crack them. And then I noticed my knuckles started going back, and the swelling and the pain in my hands were going away. And I started noticing a lot of changes. So what I'm telling you here is that you can be at any age and you can build your health back up. I wouldn't say it's 100% because I don't know how long you had been on medication or what you had done, but I have learned one thing. Stress can kill you. You take drugs, legal and illegal, alcohol, all of these vices harm the body. I want to say that we're supposed to live 120 years. If I live 120 years, I've got 48 more years in my life. Okay, that's how I look at it. I know it's a funny way of looking at it, but I've lived 72, so I've only got 48 more years to go. And then they say I'll pretty much croak at 120. But the thing is that what you do through your life is going to dictate what's going to happen to you in old age. But you're never too old that you can't change your diet to be healthier than what you are. And you work on it every day. It's not easy and it takes a lot of work. But remember, I grew up at a time that all mothers were in the home and they cooked from scratch. They really did. When they went to the store, it wasn't all the instant food that you see here. We had a big fruit and vegetable section. We had a meat section just like we have today. I remember my mother looking at it, But she liked to go to the butcher's. I remember before we had the grocery store, we had the butcher. We had to go to the fruit and vegetable stand to pick up the fruits and vegetables. We had to go to the meat store, the butcher's, to go get the meat that we want. I'd rather go to a butcher than buy the meat in the store. And the milk used to be delivered to the house. So the heavy cream, sour cream, or whatever we had, that was delivered all at the house. I went to my grandmother's house. Now that's another generation. When she went to the general store, just like what you saw in the little house on the prairie, a general store. My grandmother had the shoes just like Laura Ingalls, the little boots that they tied up. That was my grandmother. And she would go and she'd say, I want so much flour, so much sugar and stuff. And she canned and she did all of that stuff. This is where I learned a lot of these skills. So as you can see through my life, I've got that foundation. And if you want, so at any age, you can build your health up. But every time you have a drink of liquor, you have to remember that It might be out of the blood the next day, but the cells are still drunk. They're not functioning. It takes time for the body to get that alcohol out of its system. If you take illegal drugs or legal drugs, it's in there. Now, the doctor gives you a script, which is legal drugs. I can tell you right now, I've read a PDR. I've read enough. I have not read the whole book. I threw it out. As a matter of fact, I almost broke a window. I was so mad when I read it that it had killed my husband. I could have, well, anyway, I had a tent. I threw the book. I could have ripped every page out of that bloody thing and burnt it. I was so mad to find out how toxic all the medication is. This is something that, but I made the decision. I will not take the medicine. I will not. If I have to go to the doctor, I'll go to the doctor. But if I can deal without him, he'll see me once every 5 years if he likes it or not. I really don't care. It's my body. God gave it to me, and I have to care for it. So you can't stop death, okay? Once you're born, you're going to die. Your time, I can't tell you how long you'll be on the earth or anything. But if you take illegal drugs, the cells cannot function for days afterwards. You say, oh, yes, they can. Well, let's see if you can make it to 72 and be healthy and not have any problems. I mean, I keep on thinking about that leopard who caught his prey, and he went down a mountain and cliffs. And he got up and walked off with his eye. I said, boy, if I fell down that, I know every bone, I'd be dead. You know, let's put it out there. It would kill me. We're not healthy. Women sit there and they have a baby now, and now they can't hold their bladder. I mean, they sit there and they try to say, oh, well, you can, these panties you can wear, you know, and it'll protect and all. But it's basically wearing a diaper and all these things. These issues are from what they've been putting in our food. The chemicals that they're putting in our food, our preservatives, the medications they're giving you. They should make PDRs public and let people read them and see what they really do. And the reason I know about a PDR is, like I said, my husband's friend, Helen Lau, was one of 2 people who wrote the PDRs. So she knew a lot. She'd rather have a glass of wine and pay for the problems of drinking wine rather than sit there and take a medication. She was really good about that. She was notorious about that, I should say, because she knew what she was writing. So anyway, don't get discouraged if you've made mistakes. I've made mistakes learning about nutrition and all. And you might hate the kitchen. Oh, fine. You might not want to cook. Fine. But when you get old, you can't complain of the aches and pains, or if your husband gets sick because you hadn't cared for him. You thought you did. You trusted the government and you trusted the big business. The person you should trust the most is yourself when you're in that kitchen. You trust that your husband's going to come home and give you a paycheck. You trust that your children are going to behave, but you know they won't. Of course, they'll listen to a point, but then, Mommy wouldn't know. Daddy, nah, I'm going to do it. Then you get in trouble. I was there, so I know. But just be aware that you can make the body more healthy than what it is at any age. But if you want to have the maximum of health, you have to start young, and you have to eat this way throughout your life. But it's like walking through a mine, a whole mine. You've got all these mines, and they'll blow you up if you hit one, and you have to walk through it carefully. That's what it's like going to a grocery store now. It's extremely difficult. I walk through and I look, and I'll pick packages up and I read them. And I said, I wonder what this is. Get my phone out. I said, how can they say that this has live cultures? Now, when I eat my yogurt that I make from scratch, believe you me, you have cultures. You know the next day when you go to the bathroom, you have cultures. I eat their yogurt. I get a lot of sugar. I said, so what kind of culture did you put in? A pinch? You know, because I remember when yogurt first came out and they were selling it, it was just like the one I have at home that I've made myself. Then all of a sudden it got sweet, didn't have any flavor, because Congress said, oh, you can't put the cultures in, they're dangerous for the body, so they take the cultures out. Then they realized that they gave a problem. So let's put the cultures back in, but only put this much in, you know? And they have to say, well, there's cultures in it because we did put a drop in there. Think about what's going on. If your family is sick, if your children aren't as healthy as they should be, children should have a beautiful arch to their teeth. Their teeth should come in perfectly straight. They don't anymore. They have to go to the dentist, wear braces and everything else. Just think of it. There are a lot of problems. These are just a few. And I talk more about the female problems than the male problems because they get more uncomfortable when you start talking about that. But the day you start taking medication, it's just a chain reaction. Go straight down. My children, they smoke once in a while. One smokes cigarettes, another one smokes, not pipes, cigars. Okay? Do they drink all the time? One really likes his martinis and stuff. And the other one, he has his drinks as well. I can't say yay or nay to them having this, but I know what I do in the kitchen to keep them as healthy as I can. But I know if I'm not cooking for them, though they know how to cook, but because they'll be working and caring for themselves, this is going to be an issue with them and their health. But so I'm going to give them the best I can, and that's it. So it happens. These are decisions that we make, but you can't blame anybody when you start getting old and you start feeling the aches and pains of old age. You cannot turn to left or right. You can't blame God for the body or anything else. You have to look in that mirror and see yourself, because you are the problem. I learned that in a hurry. So that's why my grandmother said what she said to me, but I'm bringing it to you today. I thought about yogurt. And I said, why is when I eat my yogurt, and why is this? And they say, active cultures. Where are the cultures? I go through this when I think about things. But anyway, listen, you take care and have a great day. Bye-bye.